Amigos, bienvenidos a una sesión más de The Violinist Apprentice. En esta ocasión les traigo a un invitado muy especial. Normalmente esto lo hacía como si fuera un directo, pero desafortunadamente ya no podemos hacer eso. Así que esta nueva serie de entrevistas que empiezan este año, este es el episodio número 1 y ahora sí les traigo a una invitada muy especial. Ella es Digital Video Producer and Host at National Geographic. Ella es Angeli Gabriel. Just pretend everyone is clapping right now. Angeli, welcome to my home, my channel.
Ooh.
So I'm really happy to having you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's always nice to talk to you.
Yes, I think the same of you. So you have you probably sent me like a lot of your work and a lot of links, so I go through that. And you have such a great body of work, and I told you before, I'm really proud of you, and because you are like super awesome. And honestly, I have to tell you this: you're by far one of the best people that I ever met. So there is that.
Gosh, oh my gosh.
So to start this conversation, I want to know how you passed from study anthropology to become a National Geographic host. How was that process? I know it's like a long story, but I wanna know like everything. And yeah, how much time took you to figure it out? Like, I want to go into producing and video editing and hosting and all the great things you do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a jump, right, from anthropology to video production. But to be honest, I'd always enjoyed watching documentaries. Like even when I was in elementary school, I'd watch like on PBS, like Nature. I still remember like the silhouette of the tree in the intro, because I love those documentaries. But the thing is, I had always loved science also. And so I decided to study science in college. I had thought about pursuing something more in communications and in media, but since video production involves editing and shooting and knowing cameras, I didn't think that I was technically minded enough to do that. But I was like, oh, science, I can do science. And I majored in anthropology. And I had this path set out for myself, like, oh, I'm going to get my bachelor's in anthropology. I'm going to get my master's in anthropology. I'm going to get my PhD in anthropology. I'm going to get all the degrees in anthropology. But then second semester, senior year, perfect timing, I decided, like, you know what? I don't know if I'm like ready to jump into grad school just yet. And so while all of my other classmates were getting their acceptance letters to go into this anthropology graduate program or that anthropology graduate program, I was just like, it felt like this unknown expanse or frontier of life not being a student. And so I did some like jobs here and there. And I don't know if you want me to get into it right now, but my very first job had nothing to do with either anthropology or video production, but I still consider it a good anthropological experience, which was working at a call center. It was definitely interesting. I was on the phones for the first year, and I troubleshooted people's like cable and internet and billing problems, and I I learned a lot about patience, to say the least. And to this day, I feel like I can talk to anyone on the phone, no matter how happy, angry, whatever, and still feel like, this is fine. And then the next year, they moved me from the phones into the marketing department, where I was able to do some creative stuff. And I got to have this different peek into the business of cable and internet. And for a while, I was thinking, oh my goodness, like this could be a very good, very practical new path for me, which is maybe getting my MBA and going into marketing and going the business route. But there was still like something in me that was still just like, hold on, there's you got to pay attention to this old thing that you liked. And that old thing was making videos and making documentaries. So at that time, I was in my 20s and was thinking, you know what? Since I'm in my 20s, this is the time to like do something really stupid, take a risk. And if it doesn't work,
I feel so related to you right now. It's like you're telling my story.
right, yeah, because it's like you got to take that risk if it's calling out at you, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, no, you totally understand. And like you, I listened and I decided to quit my job at the cable company, and I took an undergraduate course in journalism and electronic media, and just to kind of like figure out if I really wanted to make that big leap into getting a master's degree in film and video. In fact, actually, I'm going to back up a little bit. While I was still in the marketing department, there was this fun competition that came about in my hometown. It was to be a spokesperson for a local federal credit union.
What?
I know. It was like the most random thing.
Yes, it's very random.
Yeah. But the more I learned about it, I was just like, you know what, this could be kind of fun because you get to talk to people, present to them about something that you're really interested in and some stuff that they should care about. And the way that you applied for it was to create a video application. And so at that point, outside of like home videos that I had made as a kid using my cameras, like my parents' like big like home video camera, I had never shot, written, edited anything in my life. But of course, crazy me was like, nah, I'll figure it out. And so
that sounds so like me with Sophia right there.
So exactly, we're just so kindred spirits. I know, like when I'm telling you this, I'm like, you get it.
Of course. Totally.
And so I borrowed a video camera and I started working out my script, figuring out interesting shooting locations on campus, around town, and trying to find a good tone for how I wanted to tell my story and why I wanted to apply for this particular position. Long story short, I did not get that position. But that whole experience actually taught me that, oh, shoot, like I can be technically minded. I can do editing. I can shoot. It's not as daunting of a task as I thought it was. I mean, there's still a lot to learn, but I actually felt excited about the prospect of learning about it. And so that was in the spring. And as time went on, I realized that, I should definitely listen to that calling that I felt that was inside, pay attention to it a little bit more. And that's what made me want to take a class in journalism and see how that went.
And look at you.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a trip to go from that to then like applying to American University and getting into their graduate film program. And what ended up happening, so that graduate film program lasted for about 2 years. And I guess in typical Angeli fashion, the second semester of my last year there, I found out that National Geographic was looking for a summer intern. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to be graduating in like a few weeks. What do I do? And I decided to postpone graduation a whole year just so I can maintain my student status and apply for that internship at National Geographic. And
smart.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm not going to pass this up. And to be totally honest with you, like me coming up here to DC, yes, was definitely to attend AU's graduate film program, but I had a goal in my mind. I was like, I'm going to work at National Geographic in some capacity. I want to make it happen. And so there was that opportunity to apply to actually do that. And so I just did whatever I could to make sure that I could be there. And so I ended up interning, unpaid at that time, for that summer.
but it's National Geographic. It's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I interned there for the summer, and then they kept me on, and I've not let them let me go so far. So, and it's been about 6.5, almost 7 years since I've been there.
Yeah. What are you currently working on at NatGeo?
Yeah, so I have actually recently shifted from producing and writing and narrating this this explainer series called the 101 videos to creating actually a couple new series. One, I know. Like one is about women in the fields of science that have gone unrecognized or have been largely forgotten over time. And our first episode, I could tell you about the first episode. It hasn't published yet, but I'll tell you about it. We just saw the rough cut. But the first episode...
I'm going to put this on the internet probably in a week, Angeli. So be sure to tell the things you want people to know, because you're telling us the exclusive of this episode. So
That's true. Okay. Well, so the skinny on this exclusive episode is the first episode is about this Scottish immigrant that moved to the United States who started off as a maid at Harvard University and ended up becoming one of its greatest astronomers. She was very intelligent and had a keen eye, which was particularly good for the job that she was doing. She would take these glass plate photographs of the stars and study them. And
yes, I know who she is. I don't remember her name, but I know her.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so because of her, like a ton of other women astronomers came and worked under her, and she just started this legacy of women astronomers in Harvard. So we felt like her story needed to be known by more people than us here in the science community. And we hope to share her story with this episode. So that's one thing I'm working on. And the other one, this is actually brand new. We are starting a new explainer series to cover just about like a wide range of topics, and starting off with a question like how does weather influence like pandemics or, things like that. And of course, with COVID being on everybody's minds right now, we want to make sure that we provide them some information on how to learn about not just COVID, but just disease and health related things in general.
Yeah, and I'm really glad of you doing that, because there's a lot of fake news going around.
Right.
And people believe everything they see on the internet. So please don't do that. Just approach like the real sources, very reliable ones. So don't believe everything you see on the internet, because not all this information is right. So be aware. Be aware of that.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you said that, because that makes, I feel like the job, like what you and I do, like really important, because like we are providing a service to people who do want to learn more and who do want to be as informed as possible. Given all the mess and chaos and fake news out there, we can be hopefully a beacon of truth and light amidst that chaos.
Yeah, we try to be the best we can be, and the best thing we can do is do the best out of our job. So hopefully a lot of people will listen. So
yes.
So as I can see, and all the people can see, you are a great storyteller. So I want to know, what are the characteristics or the qualities of a good storyteller?
Oh, a good storyteller. The first characteristic that comes to mind is being able to know and to read your audience. Because I feel like whether you are telling your story like in person or on YouTube versus Snapchat versus like a million other platforms, it's good to know like who it is you're talking to. Because once you know who it is you're talking to, then you get to understand like what are they interested in, what are their priorities, and what are some of the ways they like to be talked to. Do they like to be spoken to seriously, or do they want to be talked to like hey, we're at a bar, we're just hanging out? And being able to know that one, but very crucial thing, which is your audience and the people that you're talking to, I think is a really important characteristic in any storyteller. Because, I mean, there are some people who can tell stories for 1,000 years, but if you're telling it in a way that people don't want to listen to it, then it's like your story's wasted. But if you have a good story, you need to make sure that it's packaged in such a way that like people want to listen and want to learn.
Actually, you sent me the link of a story I previously read, the story about your mom coming from the Philippines to the US. And even though English is my second language, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt the story like super real, and I feel super connected with you. And it's such a great story. I'm telling you, and it's such a great piece, and I'll be sure to share it with all my followers.
Oh,
so it's really good. So how do you do that? how was the process? Because one of the things I struggle the most is writing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have to write, but I don't especially love it because I like to create everything here, and I don't write it. I just do it. And it's really bad because, you know, everything has a process and you need like to put your ideas and then blah, blah, blah. And then you just create like the piece you want to write or whatever. So how's the process to write like like a piece like that? So into tell a good story.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for asking about writing, because I love to write so much. I do. And it's so funny because like, of course, most of like my writing like in school was like research papers. And that's a totally different way of writing compared to whenever you're like creating videos. So as far as ways to go about writing, it definitely depends. So that article about my mom's and my like, immigration story, I had to balance a few things. One is the fact that it's like print, digital text. You are definitely confined to the words that you have on the page to deliver the message or the emotion that you feel. It's not like in video, like when I'm talking to you, you can see me being animated with my hands or if I'm crying or all that stuff. But on the page, you're definitely much more restricted, which can be a fun challenge. I also had to think about the seriousness of the subject, because even though I could talk about my mom, who is a total hoot in a funny way, and I just felt like this particular side of her life or of her story, it deserved some. It deserved some seriousness. It deserved a kind of a level of respect that I felt like would be very different from like maybe like a cheesy Snapchat video that I would write for. And for that article, I wanted to give people an opportunity to really see what it was like for us to come from the Philippines to the United States and everything involved. So there was a mixture of like telling the story chronologically, which has the risk of making people like doze off and be like, oh my God, we're still in 1991, you know? You know?
Yeah.
So you want to tell the chronological story, but in a way that makes them feel like they want to know what happens in 92 and 93. Or what I ended up doing was like mixing both, like talking about things in the year versus a stage in our life and what happened, moments and events. And by focusing on moments and events, I felt like people could identify with those things more. Like people can identify what it's like to be a parent or to be separated from your parent or your family, your siblings, or what you had to do to keep your job. Those are things that people, no matter who you are, whether you're Filipino or not, can identify with. And keeping that stuff in mind as you write, I think is like so important.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to make the things that you do like relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure like tons of people has stories similar to you. And again, I relate to you because I have like a story similar story, even though I didn't stay in the United States. But the story is kind of the same thing. You just go with your parents, you don't know the culture, is a totally different thing. And it's really really hard because that's life. Welcome to life. And you learn that at a very early age. So figuring all these things out when you were like what, 7 years old, 6 years old. Yeah, so that's really really hard. Even though right now we're seeing all these issues with immigration and people coming and going from the US, and it's really really hard. So that's why I find this your piece like very interesting and relatable, and it's something that I really appreciate in your writing. So
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, because it was so, in addition to writing about like science and history and animals, which are of course like very important like subjects for people to learn about, I think it's also important for people to learn about like human stories, and especially if you yourself have a story that can resonate with people outside of you, outside of your family, outside of your community. That story needs to be told somehow. And I felt very lucky to have the opportunity to pitch it to our editorial team at National Geographic. And it ended up publishing actually during, so even though the story is very universal, since I had written it about my mom and me, National Geographic ended up publishing it as part of Asian Pacific Heritage Month. And so just to kind of like say, like, we do diverse storytelling. We care about people around the world. And here's an article of a person who actually works here who can tell their story.
And a nice touch were the pictures.
Oh, yes.
I loved it. It was like, oh, I know her.
You see like all my buck teeth and
you were like really, really cute. And like, oh, little Angeli, like going around with her friends. Oh, like, oh, so cute.
Oh my gosh.
How was your experience working for NatGeo?
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Far.
So far.
So far.
Yeah. No, totally. It's been quite a learning experience, and not just like for video production, but even just professional development. It's been such a wild ride, especially since I work in digital. I mean, you know how digital is. Digital is constantly evolving and in such a rapid pace that whenever you have a company, and this is the case for lots of companies, especially legacy institutions that have been around for a long time, trying to like crack that nut of how to really tell stories digitally, especially through video. And so during the past 6.5 years, I have had to be nimble and adapt to so many changes in the company and experimenting with new strategies. And that I feel like has been a really fun way for me to really, I guess, like build my repertoire of how to tell stories through video. Like, for instance, my one of the earlier video series that I had written was the Snapchat video quiz series, which had a tone that was very spunky and, like I said earlier, a little cheesy, and even our graphics are like very colorful. And then we shifted to creating a series that was much more like about like reference content, so that people can go to our videos, our 101 videos, and truly like learn about lots of different subjects. So that had a totally different tone, totally different writing style, totally different kind of like a visual treatment as well. And then now doing the new explainer series, those are just 3 examples of, goodness, how many examples in the past 6.5 years of having to be like agile and adapt. So it's been fun. In short, like it's been a lot of fun working at NatGeo on the video side of things. On the hosting side of things, I've had a chance to do things that I never, ever dreamed of. Like one example of an experience is when I had gotten a chance to go to South Africa and cover our Safari Live TV hosts. And I get to talk to them, and I get to film. And I know, There's the absolute
Yeah.
and like being able to be around these animals that I had only seen movies or pictures of, or maybe in the zoo, but there they were out in the wild. And it was just the kind of thing I was just like, how in the world did this little pipsqueak from Pangasinan, Philippines make her way to a safari hosted by National Geographic? It's just like unreal. And actually the story leading up to that was kind of a learning experience in itself. I don't know if you want me to say, but so basically the way I was able to have that experience of going to South Africa to cover Safari Live, it all started during like a random all hands meeting that the company had. They were talking about the shows that the channel was producing and all this good stuff. And one of the shows that our National Geographic channel is particularly wild was talking about was Safari Live. And so they had mentioned that, and then they mentioned Mars, which was another big priority at the time.
They want to send you to Mars?
Oh God, you know what? I'll go. Why not? And
yeah, sure, why not?
like, how did a girl from Pangasinan, Philippines make it to Mars? You know?
Yeah, that will be a very interesting story.
Right, seriously. And they actually had like this huge like marketing push to promote the Mars TV series. They had this big event in New York. They had hosts and explorers be a part of it. And so after that meeting, I walked up to the man who presented. He was the executive vice president of marketing at National Geographic. And so his title totally lost on me. I was just like, oh, whatever, I'll just walk up to him. And I said,
yeah, it sounds very like you, like, whatever.
Whatever, it's fine. And so I was like, hey, Chris, I really like the work that your team did to promote Mars. Just so you know, I'm here, like I would be more than happy to contribute in any way to help promote your productions, whether it's here in DC or in New York, whatever you think. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, that's great. Thank you so much for offering. In fact, we do have a push coming up soon. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm going to be sent to like New York City or LA. I'm so excited. Then Chris is like, we actually have a team going to South Africa next month. You should go. It's just like, ah. Okay.
Where? South Africa.
That was exactly my reaction. Like, the furthest thing from my mind was South Africa. And so I was just like, okay. And so for the next couple weeks, I worked with this team who like booked my flight and make sure I had lodging in one of our NatGeo lodges down there and made sure I was connected to our social team. And I just got folded into their big marketing push to support Safari Live. And it was all because I, for some reason or other, decided to, I guess, self-advocate to the executive vice president of marketing at National Geographic. Because it was definitely a learning experience for me, because it felt like opportunities like that will never land in your lap. Because you always hear about people saying, oh, you should self-advocate, you should self-advocate. I'm like, I don't know how I would go about that, if it would even work out. But that particular
sometimes I'm a little bit worried about that, because as you can know, I'm also like you, like, hi, how are you? I'm Sophia. And sometimes I don't know if that's good or not, or even like ask. So it's kind of tricky. So I'll go back when you finish to how I met you and how my story goes from there, because it's kind of funny.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, like you bring up a really good point, because like you never know, like, will people like the fact that you're so like friendly and putting yourself out there? And honestly, like, first of all, you should absolutely stay that way and never ever change. And if someone doesn't like you for that, that's their fault.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, seriously. Because when you're being, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but this is the best way I can describe it. But like if you are being yourself, that authenticity like paves the road for your excitement, and that excitement is what gets other people excited. So if you're talking to someone in an executive position, and of course you're being respectful and professional, but if you can show them how you are truly passionate and excited about what they're working on and would like to contribute, that's the thing that'll help you. So you keep doing you. That's all.
I need to work with that executive producer.
Oh gosh, it was incredible.
Yeah, I bet. Coming back to the story. Okay, here's the deal. I met Angeli when we came together to Smash. So this is like an event in the States for science communicators and producers and filmmakers. Sorry, and and it was kind of funny because not even in my wildest dreams, I thought I could get an opportunity like that. For me, that week, I can say it's like the happiest week in my life. I can promise you that. Because for me, it was like Disneyland because you came together with a group of people that understand you and do the same things as you, and they are like passionate about the same things as you. So it's just like finding your other family. So I was like really, really happy. But I remember when I check out the other fellows that won the same thing as me, I check out Angeli because she worked for NatGeo. And if you follow my channel and all the things I say on social media, one of my biggest goals and dreams in life is working for National Geographic since I was 5 years old. And I'm not lying because in front of me, there's like my first books. Guess what? From National Geographic. So, and I bought those. Well, my parents did buy me those. And the scholastic fairs, book fairs. I don't know if you guys on the state have those, but we have those, and I got those books. So the point here, I look into Angeli's profile, and I was like, oh my god, this girl works for NatGeo. I'm obsessed. I want to meet her. But in the pictures, Angeli looks like so professional and so serious, and like, okay, I'm kind of scared, but okay, I'll do it anyway. So the first person I met in this place in at Smash, it was Angeli, and she was really, really nice because I came down from my hotel room to the lobby, and she was there with the other fellows, and I was like, hi, I'm Sophia, and Angeli went, hi. And I was like, oh my god, I didn't expect that at all, and it was like so nice, and she made me feel like super comfortable because it was my first time in the state, like doing something job or professional related to my profession related, and it wasn't like a vacation or whatever. It was like something really professional. So I was really scared and I was nervous, but I was excited. So that's a part of my part of the story, when you make me feel like super comfortable, super happy, and thank you for that. Now you know.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I just feel like you have such, I don't know, you're just such a good person, Sophia. Like, I can't imagine anyone reacting to you in any different way. So, it was seriously.
Well, there's so many people. There's a list of people that doesn't like me really much, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I have to say, no, it was really such a treat to finally be able to meet you, because I had been following you on Twitter, like prior to us having that fellowship, and just being able to see you in the flesh. I was like, oh, this is her. And can I say, I really, I mean, just to go back to the topic of authenticity, I feel like you in person, like in 3D, is the same as the person like online, which I think like is awesome. Like, you're not putting on like a mask to be on Twitter versus on YouTube versus on whatever. It's like you are being you. And I feel like, I don't know, just you being so true and being so, I don't know, so real. I don't know, it's a very inviting thing. You make people want to be a part of the process and part of the conversation and to become a friend.
Ah, thank you. That's really, really nice. Thank you. I try to be as authentic I can be, because social media these days is a really tricky place. I can tell you like I'm the Queen of England and I'm not. So and in that way I try to be like this, and because I need the people that follow me relate to me as much as they can. And this process, the all the side stories about the biologist apprentice, but it's been really, really hard, and putting, like you said, putting myself out there, it was a really scary process, because you right now you're seeing me like so outgoing and whatever, but I was not like this, not in front of a camera. When I'm like this, when I'm like super comfortable with a person, or when I have like some kind of familiarity with the person that I'm talking. So it's kind of hard, because I'm talking to a camera. So it's like going through the lens of a camera to the person that is seeing me in the other way. It's hard. But that's why I really appreciate your words.
Yeah.
Because I try to be like this as much as I can.
Yeah, no, you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, I'm trying to do that. Going back a little bit on your story, because I'm not gonna let this subject slip to me. The body farm.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna tell you another story. Turns out when I met Angeli here, I don't know why I tell her, but I read that she studied at the Knoxville University in Tennessee. That is known because there's this facility called the Body Farm. I did a video about this probably a couple of years ago, because one of my favorite books is called The Taker, that I have right here. In Spanish is La Granja de Cadáveres, and I talk about this in a video. So the first thing that came to my mind when I met Angeli is like, have you been there? Did you know Dr. Bill Bass? So I was very, very interested, because I know it sounds like super weird. I know, but for some reason I'm very interested in that process, and the book is like super interesting, how this guy, or how this doctor went to a regular person, a regular doctor, to create something new, and the creative process to put together a whole facility where they put bodies, and the composition process in water, in a car, or whatever. And for me, it's a very interesting subject. And then I'm gonna tell you another story of this. Turns out, like a week ago, I follow some people on Instagram, because I don't follow like a lot of persons in that social media. I started following like probably like a year ago this guy who is a writer, because I like books and I'm very different subjects. So I start following this guy, and he posted an story like 2 days ago about, no, like a week ago, about he's publishing a new book. And the nice thing to say is like, congratulations on your new book and your publication, right? So I ended up like talking to him via text message on Instagram, and he asked me, "What are your favorite books?" Because I told him like, "I'm sorry, I haven't read anything that you wrote, but I will. But you have like a nice taste on books." And he was like, "Oh, that's nice. Thank you very much," or whatever. And then he asked me, "What are your favorite books?" And I was like, "Sure." One of my favorite books is Letters to a Young Scientist by Edward O. Wilson. The other one is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bad Word. And then The Taker, that is this book, and Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is Harry Potter. We know. So then this guy sent me another text message saying like, oh, I know these books. I just researched about the letters to a young scientist, but I don't know anything about the Saker. Could you please tell me about this book? And I was like, of course. It's about Dr. Bill Bass and his process to create this facility where he puts dead bodies, and he like checks and have like a list and register like every process of decomposition in a body, some in a lake or in a car, etc. And he didn't reply again.
Did he not? Seriously?
Yes. So the end of this story is, I think I scared him. And no wonder why I'm single.
Oh no.
It was why, and I'm thinking why I didn't stick with Harry Potter. It's such a great anecdote.
No, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Honestly, whatever. It's a great topic.
Yeah,
good for you.
Hopefully he's not watching this, and if he is watching this, hi.
Hi. That's right.
So, Angeli, now you can tell us your version of the story.
No, for sure. And honestly, like, even just talking about this, because it does appeal to a certain kind of personality, like us, it's fun. It's fun. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't thought that I would be a part of the Body Farm, which was part of the Forensic Anthropology Center at UT. But what had happened was, while I was in the anthropology department, I learned about this volunteer opportunity. And they said, basically, you would be processing human remains. And
why not?
Right. It's like,
I'll do it.
Sure. And okay, so I actually have to back up. This is I don't know if this is funny, but so when I first started college, like a lot of people, I thought that I was going to do pre-med. I was like, I'm going to be an ER doctor. I'm going to save lives. I'm going to do all this, going to do all that. Took my first chemistry class, and chemistry and I just didn't agree with one another. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll find another path.
This is hard to believe because you had a 3.8 GPA on college. So come on, Angeli, please.
No, but it's not perfect. No. Like,
it's so far. What are you talking about?
But seriously, oh my gosh, it was one of those few moments in my life where I was like, you know what? I think I'm okay not being bad at chemistry. There are other people in the world who are good at chemistry. Good for them. And so I was like, okay, pre-med track, not for me. And interestingly, it was my first anthropology class, which was human origins, that made me want to get into anthropology, because it was being able to study skulls and other parts of the human body and how they evolved over time. That was kind of like my bridge from enjoying learning about like anatomy and physiology and the human body. And apparently I just enjoyed learning about that in dead people more so than like living people. And so,
the regular stuff.
The regular stuff, whatever. That's not weird. But and so I start volunteering at the lab, and it was a small lab. But of course you'd have to get like all dressed up, and you'd be covered up, and like you cover up your hair, your shoes, the whole shebang. And they would give us these bags of the human remains, a lot of them having been taken from the Body Farm. And so what we would do, at least my particular slice of the work, was taking the stuff and removing any dirt or flesh or other things that were still on the bone. And we would use, and I'll never look at these appliances the same way again, but we used crock pots or like slow cookers sometimes
Okay.
you know it, because you put a chicken in the crock pot and it loosens up the flesh from the bone. You just do that with like a human skull. It's the same thing. And so we actually had a slow cooker devoted to just skulls because it was like the perfect shape. It fit under the glass dome and it was great. So yeah, it was interesting being able to go through that. We also used dental tools to really thoroughly clean the bones. And it was actually just a lot of fun, just the whole experience of like handling those remains. And I remember there was one day I walked into the lab and there was a stretcher and there was a very big bag on the stretcher. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's a more complete set of remains for us to process. Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of fun.
I'm super interested right now. I'm like, super focused on whatever you're saying. Yeah, because you did that like in person. I'm telling you that I like this kind of stuff just in theory. I think the only dead things that I have approached are animals, just animals, like opossums, rats, pigs, and stuff like that. But those are animals. And I think, yeah, probably when I was in high school, when I don't know, when you are like deciding what do you want to study, we went to the university and they get us into the place where people kept dead bodies that I don't remember the word.
The morgue?
That one. Yeah, the morgue. Yeah. It was kind of like the morgue classroom. So I saw for the first time like a complete dead body, and I was like, "Excuse me, is this real?" Yes, it is. Like, oh, because it looked like a cardboard. Those things didn't look like a real thing, but guess what? It was a real body in a table on a table, and I was like, oh, it was like very interesting, but I always knew I wanted to be a biologist because I really love animals. So it wasn't like a second choice, like, oh, you could go into medicine. Even though I love, and I used to love Grey's Anatomy, that is filled with doctors and stuff like that. It wasn't like a thing for me. It was like, no, I can handle and I can support the idea of I have to keep a personal life. It's too much pressure. It's too much pressure for me. Even with animals, it's pressure. So no, not a real person. So I pass. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, I think that was a realization that like I came upon also whereas like medicine, you'd be dealing with like humans with consequences and repercussions to your actions, and you actually see the stuff happen in real life.
With feelings.
With feelings.
Human. What a concept.
Like what? I don't know. But with
then
yeah.
I remember getting into these things with death and stuff because I used to like another TV show called Rizzoli and Isles. That is a doctor that process remains and solve cases with a police officer. So I was like really interested, and I was like, I want to study that. And then I study a course on forensic entomology, and I was super excited about it. But then my professor had the great idea to take my classmates to a morgue in the police department, in the local police department, and all my friends were like, "Oh no, this is too much." The sad thing, I didn't went to that a scholar trip because I had to like deliver some, I don't know, some paper or whatever like that, and I missed it, and I was like, this was so sad, but I'm really happy I didn't went because in that facility that day they had like a fresh body of someone who got like, I don't know, like got into a crash with a trader or something. He was like a guy in a on a motorcycle, so he died. And that's it.
Sophia,
So
he died.
So yeah, we're done. And I'm glad that I didn't go that day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That would have been quite an experience though. Well, when they've been dead for a while, it's
just let me get you into details.
Just saying. Because honestly, it's like they're already gone. You can't hurt them. You're fine. You're good. Yeah. So we both appreciate the macabre, Sophia.
Just appreciate the art, the science about it. That's it.
Right. It's fun. Exactly. It's science.
So finishing this we just finished this subject. Thank you. So the other thing is, what has been the biggest challenge of your career?
Oh gosh. The biggest challenge of my career. I'm not sure if it was the biggest challenge, but like one of the biggest challenges really was to and continues to be knowing to advocate for myself. Even though there had been like that instance with the EVP of marketing where it worked out just fine, it can still be a struggle to always put yourself out there, especially in video production, because as much as video production is a craft, it's also as much about selling your craft. And then even as hosting is concerned, like that in itself presents its own challenges. But it's an ongoing learning experience, to say the least. But I'll say one story where I felt like I overcome my fears or shyness about like putting myself out there and it working out, was actually when I pitched myself to be a host for National Geographic. We had experienced a change. I think it was like in 2015 or so. We got a new director of digital video. And what he did was he met with every person that was going to be on his team and asked them, what are you doing now? And what would you like to do? And I had never had a manager ask me anything like that before. So I was like, okay, well, this is a time to really put myself out there. And so I told him, well, what I'm doing now is I'm creating deliverables for these videos. I'm doing legal binders. But what I would really like to do is to write and to host videos about science. And he was like, okay, all right, well, we'll do an audition, like a test screen or a screen test. And so what he ended up doing is that he gave me a topic to write a script about. And he told me, all right, research this, write the script. And what we'll do is that we'll take you to the studio and we'll film you and see how you are on camera, blah, blah, blah. And I do the research, I write the script, I go down to the studio and he's there with our camera woman and the teleprompter wasn't working. And he was like, okay, no, it's fine. Just recite the script, or like, it's fine. And I'm just like, I've never hosted anything. I've never done anything like this before. What do I do? And so I started trying to talk about like the stuff that I researched and that I learned, and it ended up going like absolutely terribly. Like I was bombing. Like I could feel like my cheeks getting warm. I was so embarrassed, and I was just like, this is not how it's supposed to go. And the guy and the director, he was like, I think he was sensing that I was really struggling, and he was like, okay, you know what? Forget the script. Forget what I told you to research. Just tell me something that you're passionate about. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm really interested in this book that I'm reading right now. And he said, okay, fine. Tell me about the book. And then I just like went off just talking about this book and what it's about, why I'm excited about it. And out of everything we recorded that afternoon in the studio, for him to pitch me to be a host to the executives of National Geographic, he took that slice of me talking about that book and presented it to them and said, she needs to be a host. And because of that, he and those executives, they ended up creating a position for me as a writer and a host for digital video at NatGeo. And it all started with like just learning to get over myself at that moment and just to be like, you know what? Again, like earlier, opportunities don't just fall in your lap. You have to make opportunities for yourself. And when like a door cracks open, you have to like bust it wide open. And learning to have the confidence and the courage to do that has always been a bit of a challenge. And that particular moment was a time when trying to overcome that challenge like kind of paid off.
I'm going to cry because that's a really beautiful story.
Oh gosh.
That's so nice because I remember going to an audition. I think I was like probably in the second semester at my university, and the local university has like their own channel, so they were looking for someone to host like this kind of TV show related with nature and blah blah blah. And the way of payment was like your professional practices, so they pay you with that. So I was like, I'm going to apply to that. What? How hard can it be? It was like really hard because I remember at the time I was just like a blogger, like a regular blogger. I wasn't doing anything for YouTube yet. But then I was like, probably I can't start with this. How hard can this could be? And then I went to the audition and they put me like the microphone. I was like, yeah, it's a mic. And I was like, okay. Because I was like, it's so bad. So I went there and they were like, okay, start talking. About what? About whatever you want. I was like, okay. The best way to create an entomological collection is to go outside. Like terrible. Thank you. I just spoke like this 10 seconds. It was just 10 seconds. Thank you. And the guy was like, and I was like, just keep going. And the guy was like, until he told me like, thank you. I was like, okay. So I didn't get that one. But that was the first thing. So I was like, okay. And then I started like making YouTube videos. The first one are terrible, but and now I can say I'm a pretty decent video host. So it's fine.
Oh, hold on, Sophia. You are a pretty decent video host. Like, you have done just fine for yourself.
I'm trying to be humble here.
Well, I will sing your praises on your behalf, my dear.
I remember someone told me in a comment on one of my videos, like, you should start like making videos in a lower voice because you talk so loud, and that kind of like hurt my ears a little. There is a thing called volume. Just turn it down, and you will be like fine. And the guy replied, "You are not humble at all. You should listen to your audience. What are you doing?" And blah blah blah. I was like, okay.
Right. Oh.
No, it's a thing. If you are watching this, hi. I don't know who you are, but it's not personal. It's just like a moment.
You're good.
So the other question is, what are you most passionate about? Writing, hosting, or producing?
Oh gosh, that's a very difficult question.
I know. That's why I just have to.
You're so mean. Gosh, I feel like it changes every day. Something that, I don't know, one of the ways that I try to process that question is like, if I could just do one of those things for the rest of my life, what would it be? And it's still very difficult to come up with an answer for it because, I mean, as you know, like each one of those things offers something different. Producing allows you to really shape the story that you want to tell. And especially whenever you get to work with a team, you get to like work with an editor, you work with an AP, you work with so many different talented people who all together you can create like a great product. Writing is like another way to shape a story and to tell the story. But oftentimes, if you're a writer, you have to write in the way that a producer wants you to write. And then when you're hosting, the good side of that is you can really connect with your audience and talk to people and get excited about anything and build a community around that. But a host oftentimes has to do things that the producer wants them to do. So then whenever I go through each of those three and the perks and the not so good perks, I'm thinking, I think right now I'd say producing, because it can encompass like hosting and writing. If you are a producer, writer, host, then you can have like the ability to really make your creative vision come to life and tell the story the way that you think is most fitting.
That's an excellent answer. Because I'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
because as a producer, you are like Thanos. You have like the thing with the jewels, you know, the writing and the hosting and stuff like that. And you have like the power of everything. So producing.
Oh my God. That is a perfect way to describe it. Producing, you are like Thanos.
Yeah, you are like Thanos with the. How do you say like the thing, like guantelet, or what's the name of that?
Oh gosh.
In English?
Yeah. I can't even, it's not glove, it's not gauntlet, sounds fine. Yeah.
Gauntlet, right? Yeah. Right? My perfect analogy for that.
It is really good.
I'm so sorry. I'm filled with biology and TV shows and movies. That's a way to define me. So many knowledge on that.
Hey, that's all right.
So if you could have a side career completely different of the thing you do, what would it be?
Oh gosh, a side career. You're gonna laugh. I would actually be interested. I would be interested in looking into a side career in politics, actually. Yeah, I know that sounds kind of absurd, but I just feel like being able to make changes that you feel are necessary in a community.
You already have my vote.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, see, exactly. Just being able to like.
Don't you want to be president or something like this?
Oh
Because
my God.
right now we are having this moment in life when we need good leaders, and guess what? We don't have good leaders.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just putting this idea out there.
Yeah, why not shoot for the moon? Give me maybe till 2024. 2020 is a little soon. But yeah, I think like running for some sort of office for a community and being able to talk to people, hearing what's most pressing to them and what changes that they would like to see have done to become a stronger community. And if I can be the kind of person to help make that happen, oh my gosh, I think that would be such a fulfilling career. So.
Yes. I can picture you doing politics in the best way possible. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like politics seems like such dirty business, and I'm not sure if I'm cut out for it. But it is a way that things should get done. But
probably I don't see myself doing politics. Who knows? But I don't see myself, because I think it's like a very tough environment, And sometimes I don't take criticism very well. So probably I will cry with something like that. So it's like a tough environment, but I think you have it on you. So what is your goal in your current career? What's like the thing that I want to pursue this? This is my ultimate goal. I think I'm gonna be a better professional if I do this.
Oh, sure. Oh, gosh. That's a difficult question to answer because I never would have guessed in a million years that I would even get this far. But the best answer I can come up with, really, is to get as good as I can be as a producer, as a writer, hell, as a host, so that I can continue to create good digital content, maybe one day make broadcast content, but eventually get to the point where I can teach the things that I have learned to up and coming filmmakers and hosts, upcoming writers, just because I think it's really important for people to learn how to tell stories. Maybe it's stories about biology or anthropology, history, or even like their own stories. So if I can help people feel more equipped to use video production as a way to tell those stories, maybe, I don't know, as a lecturer, professor, some sort of capacity, I think that would be a really cool end goal.
Awesome. I really like your answers. That's really, really, really cool. Very smart. And the other thing is, what inspires you?
Ooh, what inspires me? You are
I'm
really
getting the details here. I'm asking the deep questions here.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh, gosh, what inspires me? Honestly, what inspires me? What inspires me? One of the things that inspires me is just like oh gosh, I just had like 5 different things like come to mind at the same time. But one of the things that inspires me, honestly, is seeing how people respond to our videos online. And I imagine you feel the same way too. And whenever you see comments from people being like, wow, I never knew this thing about this planet, or I had no idea that animal did this. And just being able to see the impact that we're making on people, even just through our short videos, that to me is really inspiring and really motivates me to want to be as good of a video producer as possible so that I can keep making content that helps them learn and that helps them understand the world that they live in. So yeah, our community, our audience inspires me every single day.
Nice. You see me very serious, but I'm taking all my notes here because I agree with those things. That's the beauty of having friends that do things in the same line and the same profession as you. Because all she's saying is the truth.
You totally get it. You totally get it.
So the last question that I always like to ask is, what advice you could give to any future video producers, hosts, or science communicators? What is like your ultimate advice?
Okay. Oh, now this is an easy one for me. My ultimate advice for anyone who wants to become like a media producer or filmmaker or host is, if you want to be any of those things or all those things, you have to go all in. You can't do things halfway. You can't just treat it as like maybe I'll try it out. It's one of those things that if you are passionate about it, you have to go for it. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like there are people who that I've met who are very talented, but they don't really push themselves in a way that could really make their talent shine or be more well known. And part of that goes back to the whole like self-advocacy thing, because you could be like the very best like editor on the planet or the very best video producer or host, but if you don't put yourself out there or talk to the right people or network, like that can really make a difference between where you are right now and where you could be and the opportunities that you could have. And I really feel like more people need to really devote themselves to the craft as well. Don't think that watching one YouTube tutorial on how to edit will be the only kind of learning that you should do if you're going to be a video editor for years. It's a constant learning process, and that's part of the fun of it. It's that you get to be a better editor, better at this craft. And so whether it's editing or writing or hosting or anything else, I would just recommend that if you're going to do any or all of those things, go all in.
Thank you. That's a really, really good advice. Angeli, that was it. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Where can people follow you? You have Instagram, Twitter, or whatever?
Oh, yes. yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, but this was really fun.
Thank you for accepting this invitation. So people can follow you. What are your handles?
Oh, my handles are at Angeli Gabriel, and that's on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm on Snapchat also, Angeli.Gabriel, or Gabriel with the American pronunciation of it. So you can find me in those places. I'm most active on, I'd say, Twitter and Instagram.
Muy bien. Yeah. Pues ahí está, amigos. Ella fue Angeli. Muchísimas gracias. Esto fue el primer episodio y recuerden suscribirse, picarle al botoncito de suscribirse, picarle a la campanita para que les recuerde cada vez que subo un nuevo video. Y nos vemos en la siguiente entrevista, en el siguiente video. Hasta la próxima. Bye.